Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, worse than getting swept by the Mets, David Bednar delivered perhaps one of the worst Subway Series losses for the Yankees, giving up a huge 3-run home run, blowing a 3-run lead in the ninth, and the Yankees end up losing in extra innings to the Mets at CitiField for the Sunday game, and again, take another 2-1 game loss at CitiField, again, a field that haven't won in since 2018. But worst of all, at the end of the day, you can say, well, you don't want to get swept, and they didn't get swept, okay. But the way they lost the game, it's almost like it almost felt like you did get swept. It's almost worse than a sweep, how badly the Yankees lost this game, blowing what was originally a 6-1 lead going late into this game, and the Yankee bullpen faltering. Mets were able to chip away a couple of runs, and of course Bednar sloppy in the ninth inning, and then gives up a huge 3-run home run, which you cannot do, 2 outs. Just a terrible loss, and again, for a Mets team that was down and out, beaten, embarrassed, we get into the whole thing there, and just to breathe a little life into the Mets team, and probably gave them what's going to be their best win of the year. I don't see the Mets like using this as a springboard, and also now everything's back to normal, which you're starting to hear some of that. These are people that were giving up on the Mets after 2 weeks. Also now say, hey, the Mets are back. Well, I want to go that far there, but we will dive into the weekend series, which again started off great with Cam Schlittler having a good start there. Yankees getting kind of an easy win. Carlos Rodon was good and threw a wild pitch, and you're going to lose a game, fine, whatever. But again, a killer on the Sunday game, thanks to David Bednar, who is the Yankees closer. I say you can still stick with him going forward there, but you can see why. And as I say, that the Yankees still going to have to make a move to get someone else in the closer role. I like Bednar as out of the bullpen late in games, but I do not like him closing games, but we'll get to the whole thing. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And as also I mentioned, the YouTube version of the show. Go to YouTube, search around for Section 420 Talkin Yankees. I'm sure it'll pop up. Go to the subscribe button and get notified when new episodes are launched. So going into this week, I said, Max Fried went down. He's going to be on IL a little bit with the bone bruise. Okay, overall, you'll take that news, other than him needing some sort of surgery or procedure, fine. Obviously, it would have been nice to have him for the Sunday game, but the Yankees had to call up Elmer Rodriguez to take a spot start. Friday game was pretty much on paper was going to be a good matchup. Clay Holmes, the former Yankees, turned out to be one of the Mets' best starting pitchers, kind of going shot for shot a little bit. The Yankees grabbing the lead, but unfortunately, Spencer Jones rocketed a ball up the middle, hitting off Clay Holmes and fracturing his fibula, and it looks like he was able to pitch a little bit more in the game, but had to take himself out, and then afterwards x-ray shows he had the cracked fibula, and it looks like he's going to be out for quite a while, possibly even the rest of the season there. Kind of a blow to the Mets, who, again, if they want to have any prayer for this season, kind of needed a healthy Clay Holmes, so that's down. So even though the Mets had this amazing win on Sunday, in the long run, losing Clay Holmes was actually the bigger blow, so the Mets are going to have to deal with that. But nevertheless, Cam Schlittler pitching strong there, and the Yankees kind of walking away with a bit of a laugher in the opening game, like a 6-2 win. Juan Soto hit a little cosmetic home run later on. The Mets also off of Bednar on the kind of scratch around a kind of a meaningless run there, but the Yankees kind of take the Friday night game and pretty much easy opener laugher there. Cam Schlittler again solidify himself right now as probably maybe the best starter in baseball as he again continues to dominate with the ERA. And of course the Saturday game with Carlos Rodon, we know he's a little bit sloppy in this first game back against the Brewers, had the 5 walks, not as many walks as this game, but really not effective. Only pitch into the 4th inning there. The big play, having a wild pitch followed up by a bad error trying to take a second runner coming home, kind of a throw went to nowhere, trying to force a play. So the Yankees find themselves down early, never really able to get them on in this game, and really kind of annoying game because even as bad as Rodon was, Yankees had left 11 men in scoring position this game, had runners on the base constantly, a couple of bases loaded situations where they couldn't cash in there. But even like that type of loss doesn't bother you too much, even though, again, they left like a million guys on base and had a million of opportunities, especially Volpe striking out with a big opportunity, again, with bases loaded, but he will get at least an advantage on that on the Sunday game. But again, it didn't bother you. Fine. You won the Friday game. The Saturday game, you lose 6-3. But the Sunday game is really what kicks you there, of course. So if early on, Elmer Rodriguez making his 3rd start. And again, so far in his 3 starts, not saying he's been stupendous, hasn't been garbage. You like to get more length out of him, but he pretty much barely gets you into the 5th inning. That's kind of what the story was with this game. Problem with this game, the Yankee bullpen overall, and you could focus on Bednar, but really the whole way were ineffective. You look early on, the Yankees, after a great diving play by Trent Grisham to secure a 1-1 tie, Yankees able to break it open in the 6th inning. With Volpe, gets an opportunity with the bases loaded against Sean Manaea, and I like what he did. Instead of just like having a long at bat and you're thinking, attacks the first pitch, nice line drive single into left field, scores 2, gives the Yankees a 3-1 lead, and the Yankees tack on from there. And even not only tacking on, getting a pop-up to left field where Bo Bichette was going out there. He should have deferred to the left fielder, but I guess the left field again maybe wanted to defer to the veteran Bo Bichette. And it almost looked like the same thing as the Luis Castillo play where you see struggling. And when you see a shortstop going out like that, going away, it's almost bad news. You knew it was going to drop in, and it did drop in. And this is, before I mentioned before, the Mets also dropping a ball in the Friday night game, Carson Benj in right field. So, the Mets seem to be infamous for dropping the balls like this. So you get 2 drop balls. I mean, again, these were routine plays, 2 drop balls, 2 games within the same weekend. And it just would have been so perfect. If the Yankees could have won that game, the drop ball by Bo Bichette would have been so more magnified, but the fact the Mets won the game, I'm sure Met fans are going to store that in the back of their head a little bit, but it almost gives them like a reprieve. If the Mets would have lost that game and Bo Bichette would have dropped that ball, it just would have magnified itself upon levels I can't even imagine right now. But it almost now gets them off the hook, unfortunately. This is the fact the Mets came back and won the game. But nevertheless, again, the Yankees kind of sit pretty at the point, tacking on. And in that 6th inning, again, every move Boone made, worked out. Paul Goldschmidt gets hit by a pitch or you have a run on first base. Puts in Max Schumann for speed. He would come around the score. Even have Rosario putting him in there, the pinch hitting for the left-hander J.C. Escara. Gets a sacrifice fly to right field. Again, every move Boone made that in 6th inning worked out there. It was all looking perfect. And then unfortunately, right after that, the Mets answered back. And that's as much as you want to blame Bednar. You also got to blame Yarborough and Bird for not getting the job done. And then even, Paul O'Neill kind of said it if you're watching the Yes telecast. Okay, you jump out, you got a good 6-1 lead. Now you got to shut the door. Don't give them any prayer that they could come back in this game. And unfortunately, Yarborough was ineffective, as well as Jake Bird. Jake Bird gives up a pinch hit 0-2. I think the count was maybe the 1-2 or 0-2, ahead of Luis Torrens, who was coming in to pinch hit. Way ahead of him, and gives him a hittable pitch, goes opposite field. Now, it was a good piece of hitting, go opposite field, just past the first base. Ben Rice there at first base. Was able to flag it. 2 runs come around, and the Mets now cut their lead in half from 6-3. Yeah, even though the Mets have been struggling to score runs, you still figure that's enough. But still, if both Yarborough and Bird could have done a better spot in that situation there, you would have come away with maybe a 6-1, okay, maybe 6-2. You're still going to have Duvall, Cruz, and Bednar come out the rest of the way. You still like your chances, but now you cut the lead in half to 6-3. You give them a little hope, and so as much as you want to blame Bednar for giving up the big one, Yarborough and Bird also guilty as well. Not shutting the door right after the team handed you a 6-1 lead. And of course, Cruz and Duvall were fine. And then comes the 9th inning with Bednar. And you could tell maybe he wasn't sharp right away. Gives up a leadoff hit. And then Bo Bichette, who was just down in the dumps. Fans are booing him. He just dropped a pop-up. Gets himself a seeing eye single up the middle. Now you got 2 on against Juan Soto. And now the Mets bring the tying run to the plate. And of course, Juan Soto, as we know, one swing can tie the game there. But Bednar able to get him the ground out. Fine. You move runners to second, third. It's almost like you don't really care that much. Again, you're worried about the winning run. You're not really worried about those 2 runs. Then comes up Vientos, who looked overmatch him, and Bednar had him eating out his hand. He swung out of his shoes, out of 2 curveballs, way out of the zone, and then gives him an eye-line high fastball. Again, Vientos had no business of swinging at, swings it at, so completely dominated Vientos on 3 pitches, and you figure if David Bednar is in the driver's seat, and then come Tyrod Taylor hitting 177. Okay, yeah, he has 2 home runs. The guy's hitting 177. And you just struck out Vientos, who's also a right-handed hitter, as well as Tyrod Taylor. You just had this Vientos eating out of your hand. You must feel good about yourself. I don't know if it was a confidence thing. I don't know if he missed a spot. First pitch, throws the same type of curveball he got Vientos to swing at, but instead of the curveball breaking outside, it stayed over the inside of the plate, and Tyrod Taylor able to put enough of a swing on it to where, it was like almost like a mile-high pop-up that could have been fair or foul there, and it just dropped into the fair part of the foul pole, and the Mets having probably, again, this is going to be their best win of the season, but huge 3-run home run to tie the game with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning against the rival New York Yankees. And again, if you're a Met fan, you're probably on cloud 9 with that one, but just a terrible job by Bednar in that situation. And as David Cohn said, you got to pitch to the score. Don't give him a breaking ball over the inside middle of the plate. There's no reason to. You got 2 outs. Even if Tyrod Taylor gets a single and scores 2 runs, fine. It's 6-5. You got the lead. A runner on first. You still got 2 outs. You're still in the driver's seat to win the game. And again, throws a little breaking cookie that just didn't have enough bite on it. And again, maybe he got too cocky after striking out Vientos and getting 2 swing and misses on those early curves. I don't know, but terrible decision, blows the game. And to make it even worse, you have to go into extra innings and face Devin Williams. Obviously, the Yankees had him last season. We know he struggled. He's chomping at the bit to throw a good, clean inning here against his former team. And the Yankees have him also set up. First and third, 1 out. Austin Wells up, who had to come in for late inning defense, after they pulled the Rosario Escara switch. And we know he's been struggling mightily. He's hitting about 174 himself. There were 2 home runs. And again, Yankee fans are starting to get a little edgy on him right now. And get in a spot there where all he has to do is make any sort of soft contact or a sacrifice fly. He does the one thing he can't do with first and third, 1 out. The one thing he can't do is having an inning-ending double play. That's the one thing he can't do. You could do a million other things. If you want to strike out, fine. If you want to pop out, fine. A fly out would be nice, an RBI fly out. Or you've had a little dribbler that just dribbled nicely, and then Volpe could easily, with his speed, score from third base. Instead, he does the one thing he can't do, grounds into a double play with Devin Williams covering, and Devin Williams gets out of the jam, maintains the 6-6 lead, and the Yankees go into the bottom of the ninth. And this has been the story for the past couple of seasons, which, again, with the ghost runner rules, I mean, it really favors the home team. And at that point, when the Yankees had to score there, even if the Yankees score, I wasn't expecting to win this game, because when you start off with the runner at second base and nobody outs, the other team's going to score as well, and it's just going to go on forever. So once the Yankees didn't score there, especially when they didn't score there, I knew they were cooked. And it just happened with Simeon starting off at second base, A.J. Ewing able to lay down a bunt, put a runner on third. Tim Hill ended up plunking the next batter. I knew he had no interest in pitching to him. He wanted to set up the similar situation, have a first and third where he could get a double play. And boom, got a little bit cute. I understand what he wanted to do. Pulled the extra outfield to have an extra infielder there to chop down any play at home. I get it. Strategically, it's the right thing to do. I'm not going to criticize them, but a little dribble up the middle there, and you have like 3 players going for the ball at once. Once that ball hit the ground, the Yankees lost. You're not going to be able to get the runner out at home. You're not going to be able to turn a double play. So that little dribbler, like if Austin Wells would have done that, just on the top of the frame, Volpe would have scored, and the Yankees would have at least had the lead at that point there. But the Mets getting that little dribbler, and Simeon scores easily, and of course the Yankees now completely lose the game by a score to 76. Mets coming back, and of course jumping the field and the whole deal, as you would expect them to celebrate, coming down from a 6-1 late in the game, and of course the 6-3 tying it on the big 3-run home run by Tyrod Taylor. And just an awful loss for the Yankees. It almost feels like they got swept. That's how bad of a loss it is. You don't mind having that bad of a loss against like Oakland or Tampa, but to have it against the Mets, it just makes it twice as worse. And again, bad situation for the Yankees. Awful road trip overall, going 2-7, getting swept there in Milwaukee, walking away with 1 win against a bad Baltimore team, and again against probably the Mets, who at least entering the series was one of the worst teams in baseball. The Yankees also dropping 2 out of 3, and the Yankees, I'm not saying they're in dire straits right now. I mean, there's little problems. Even Judge is not hitting great. You see Judge hitting around 268, what you're not used to. Little things that worry about, but again, it's not in a good frame right now, and also got compounded with that the fact that Max Fried is going to be down probably at least until mid-June at best. So not some good stuff going to the Yankees. And with the losses and this bad road trip, Yankees find themselves in second place, 3 games behind Tampa, who just keeps on winning. Now, good news from that the rest of the pack under the Yankees, Toronto's 9.5 games out there, so I don't think the Yankees are going to fall into that big of a pit there. So and the Yankees have this week back at home, back at Yankee Stadium, open a series against Toronto. So hopefully the Yankees get back in the winning ways and kind of put this bad taste out of the mouth. But just an awful loss for the Yankees. And overall, I kind of addressed this on probably the most recent YouTube episode about the Yankee bullpens and fan concerns. I don't think of all the things the Yankees have right now, probably the bullpen is probably their weakest point. Now, I don't say it's weak as in it's terrible. It's just not as strong as some of the other areas. I think their offense is going to be fine overall. The starting pitching's great. Have a plethora of it. And again, you're going to get Garrett Cole back soon. And as soon, again, it seems like this Max Fried thing isn't super serious. He'll be back as well. And I'm also confident that Carlson Rodon will kind of get himself straightened out, and Cam Schlittler's rolling along. And what you're getting at, the quote-unquote 5th spot, whether it's Will Warren or Ryan Weathers, all been great there. So the one really thing you could worry about this Yankee team a little bit has been the bullpen. A lot of good guys there, but late in the game, you got to worry about it a little bit. And let's look at Bednar's ERA, 4.95. Now, he's only had 2 blown saves. That was only his second blown save for the whole season, so can't really get on him. I mean, Devin Williams seemed like he had 10 blown saves within the first 2 months of the season. So it's only Bednar's technically second blown save. And I know he also gave up a game-winning home run in one of the Milwaukee series, but again, that was also coming into a tied game there. So I don't really count that as much. You could say technically it's a third blown save, but he came into a tied game and just gave up a game-winning home run. But overall, I've seen Bednar has been able to get touched up. I think the Yankees can at least, weather the storm with this bullpen, but once it comes to trade deadline, I think Cashman is going to have to get maybe a closer from another team here, because as much as I like Bednar overall there, but the problem is he has sloppy innings. He always lets a couple of runners on. Now, he gets out of the jam usually, and he kind of like that grittiness. He gets usually a big double play, or he'll have the bases loaded, but he'll get a strikeout. But You don't want to get to that point. You want to have some clean innings, and he just does not have clean innings. So at some point, we'll just have to see what teams drop out of the race once we get toward the trade deadline. But the Yankees are going to have to bring someone else here to close games. Bednar, he's okay, but he's really a high leverage guy. He's a 7th inning guy. He's an 8th inning guy. He's not a 9th inning guy. You want your 9th inning guy to come in clean, in and out, get away with 12 pitches and be in and out. Bednar always gives you a little bit of a roller coaster. And just look at his ERA. It's 4.95. And you also have Duvall, who's supposed to be your 8th inning setup guy. He's in the 4s. So you have your two back end guys who are supposed to be locked down, shut down. They're pitching to an ERA in the 4s. So you can't have that. At a certain point, though, Cashman's going to have to bring in a closer. Or, as I mentioned, an option, if Ryan Weathers become the odd man out, maybe he could groom himself into that role. And here's a guy who throws high 90s. You got a lefty. It's a funky delivery. Could be, sort of like a Chapman a little bit. I don't think he's going to throw 100 like Chapman, but maybe he could groom into that role if it turns out there's no spots in the starting role for him. Maybe use him as a weapon in the bullpen and maybe just, grooms into that role there, which could very well happen. That's happened to Luke Weaver. I mean, Luke Weaver was kind of somewhat of a failed starter for the Yankees, kind of found the home in the bullpen, and before you know it, one thing led to another. Clay Holmes was struggling, and then Luke Weaver became, at least during a stretch there, an elite closer for a while there before 2025 hit, and he kind of hit the wall a little bit. But nevertheless, Ryan Weathers perhaps could be in that situation. But overall, if the Yankees go to October, I just don't know he's going to be the guy with ice in his veins, be able to close these games out clean. He just has too many sloppy innings there. So Bednar, overall, I like him. Not going to go too crazy on him. And the Yankees, look, we've had these before. And Mariano Rivera, you remember back to 99, blew a game against the Mets, and Mac Franco getting the game-winning flare hit off him. Also, I think it was the last Subway Series game for Mariano. He had a 1-0 lead going into the ninth, and Lucas Duda with an RBI single to score 2 runs and blowing a 1-0 lead. The Mets win 2-1 in that game. And, of course, there was a walk-off hit by David Wright. That was around 2005. So, look, we've had these situations where Mets have had walk-off hits against the Yankees and elite Yankees closers such as Mariano Rivera. So there's nothing new there. So it's happened. But the way this happened, though, it's just really unexcusable. A 3-run home run against a guy hitting 177, and just the whole thing just can't happen there. So tough week for the Yankees, but you got to look your wound, focus back on the AL East and start getting some wins against Toronto and some other foes there. Get back on top of the AL East and kind of take it from there. We'll catch you next time.